Is Bryce Young automatically a top 5 quarterback in the NFC with all the powerhouse teams and quarterbacks building up in the other conference in the NFL? We got questions about hot dog rollers that my co-host Matt Williamson is going to have to clue us in on, and what to expect in this portion of the NFL offseason. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. That's where most of the questions are going to come from today on this Mailbag episode, post-draft Mailbag. You can also drop a question in the comments anytime you like on our new YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed up there. Hit the thumbs up, and we appreciate you for it. So I want to start here, Matt. This is interesting. It's obviously post-draft. A lot of teams excited about their draft classes and such, and they should be. An interesting question here that was dropped actually kind of during the first round of the draft, and appreciate everybody who leaves us questions. We're not going to get to all of them. Always a lot of good ones, but you can drop it any old time, and we'll see it if you tag at BD Peacock and at Williamson NFL on Twitter. But Christopher says, with Bryce Young being selected to the Panthers in the NFC, does that make him already a top 5 quarterback in the conference? Who would you start ahead of him? Hurts, Prescott, Murray, Fields, with Rodgers now gone to the AFC? I mean, most of the big-time quarterbacks are in the AFC. It's a gauntlet over there. I mean, it also points to how quickly a team like the Panthers could turn things around.
It does, and so my biggest concern with Young as a prospect isn't how good a football player is. I think he's going to come in and be a very good player not from day one, but as first-round quarterbacks go. My concern is, can he play 17 games for 5 years in a row and hold up? So that my concerns probably won't come to light for some time, hopefully. Now, Shielkopedia, he works for The Athletic. He may have switched venues, but anyways, he does really good work. Check him out on Twitter. Did a study like 2 years ago, and I'm very familiar with this because Kenny Pickett was the first-round quarterback last year. And what Shield did was he went through the last 10 to 12 years of rookie first-round quarterbacks, what their average EPA is at the end of their rookie year. Guys that are starters, not Jordan Love, so Pickett counts, Stroud I'm sure will count, Young will count, in recent memory. And on average, a rookie starting quarterback is the 23rd best quarterback in the league. Some are a little better, Herbert, Burrow, Dak, fewer top 5, of course. Most are 30-ish to bring the curve down, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're averaging 23 and you take out the best guys, then you're in bad shape, because now we're talking Rosen and Darnold, and Josh Allen was bad before he was good. And so expecting
rookie year was bad.
Expecting your rookie quarterback to be top 5 out of the gate is probably a fool's errand, but expecting him to get to top 5 is why you drafted him, why you traded up to number 1. But in 2023, I mean, you would bet against that happening. But there's a path for him to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFC as things are shaking out, and he's probably going to be battling those names he did mention: Hurts, Prescott, Murray, Fields. We'll see where the top quarterbacks go next year, right? But in 2024, 2025, what are we talking about? And that's when you're hoping Young is one of those top 5 guys.
Yes. So the Twitter question in itself, I think, is way too ambitious. Frankly, I don't think he'll approach Dak, Hurts, a healthy Murray even, although I have some reservations about him. I don't think he'll approach Carr.
Well, Murray's not playing this year either, so that might be doable.
He's a hard one. Throw him out. So he's a tough one. I don't think he'll approach Carr or Goff. History shows that that's a real uphill climb. But I like the way you phrased it after you read the question but there is a nice path, and he's got a line, and he got some stuff around him where he certainly could be in that conversation quicker than most, I would say. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Okay.
Yeah. But here, you got to build around a quarterback. Like Mingo, they drafted in the second round, but you lost DJ Moore.
Right.
Mingo was kind of overdrafted, I think. It was funny because I liked Mingo a lot. And I was like, man, if he's going to go late third round, that's going to be maybe a steal and a really fun player for a certain team that knows how to use him because he's an interesting prospect. And then there was a lot of heat with him in the draft process, and he worked out well as one of the few bigger body wide receivers that actually ran fast. And, and then he goes high second round. And then it's like, oh, you went pretty high there. So I don't, he's a more of a gadgety guy than you're plugging him in to be your main weapon for a rookie quarterback. So I think because of the team that's around him on offense and losing their best receiver that would have helped him going to the Bears to help get you your quarterback, it's going to be tough going, I think, for any rookie quarterback. And that's not the best situation for a rookie to just jump in and be like, hey, like we saw with Brock Purdy, everything's in place.
Right.
And he gets a half a season to sit on the bench and all of a sudden gets plugged in. It's like, cool, I got the best weapons you can possibly have in a team, and everyone's veterans. Everyone knows what to do. As long as I don't screw up and I just do what my coach says, I'm gonna be doing okay. It's not gonna be that easy for Bryce Young.
So in the last 48 hours or so, I've shifted gears a lot more towards fantasy and the Locked On Dynasty stuff I do, and just post draft where these guys fit in. And along what you just said, like, I don't think I want any Panthers. Like, I don't think their offense is going to be particularly good this year. It's going to be a typical first year growing pains situation. And frankly, Panthers fans, if he ends up as the 23rd best quarterback when the season ends, I think you're happy about it. I mean, especially if it's in a Pickett-like manner where Kenny was probably the 23rd best quarterback in the league last year, something like that. But as the season went on, he got more and more comfortable. They understood, the team and quarterback understood each other better. Things got better as the season went on. That's what you want. Just look like you belong in year one.
You're right. Just hope for growth and hope you don't sit here during the 2024 draft and go, oh my gosh, should we just draft this other quarterback because it was such a disaster.
Right. That's a win.
Zachary says, does the Randall Cobb signing drop Garrett Wilson to the number 3 receiver? Rodgers wanted his boys, and the Jets signed Alan Lazard and now Randall Cobb.
The inmates would totally be running the asylum if there's any truth to that whatsoever. Wilson, to me, is on the cusp of being one of 12 number 1 receivers on the planet. So if he doesn't lead that team in targets by a wide margin, that's coaching malpractice.
Or there was an injury.
Of course. Right.
He's headed towards superstardom, and I think he could go absolutely nuts. And Aaron Rodgers already talked about him and compared him to Devontae Adams. So I think he brought his boys in to be 2 and 3, not to be number 1. Garrett Wilson, easy number 1 there. And I think that'll probably show itself out. It probably already has because they've already joined up for a first post-draft OTA session.
And we're seeing a lot of small roster movement post-draft. Like Corey Davis could be in trouble, though. Garrett Wilson's not in trouble at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. Denzel Mims. There's some guys that have some competition on that roster. Garrett Wilson, not one of them.
No, he's a number 1.
Interesting one from Hendricks here. He says, gents, would you please grade the Miami Dolphins draft? A grade without Chubb and Ramsey, and a grade including Chubb and Ramsey since 2023 draft picks were traded for them. Keep up the great work. Hashtag fins up. We haven't talked much about this Dolphins draft. They didn't draft early, so their draft kind of flew under the radar this year. And clearly, like a lot of teams don't have high picks, it's because they traded those picks for players on their roster. So, with Chubb, I don't know if the Chubb deal on its own looks great anyway. So I don't
love that part.
Their draft grade. Obviously, Ramsey could be massive for that team, and you have to factor those things in. What do you think about the Dolphins haul, Matt?
Well, they had a second rounder, a third rounder, and then a 6 and a 7. So, frankly, I'm not going to spend too much time on him, but the 7th round pick, Ryan Hayes, it looks like to me could be one of those tackles that lasts in the league 6 to 8 years as a backup. Great. Elijah Higgins is a really interesting. Is he a tight end? Is he a slot? I don't know what he is, but he's an athletic weapon that I think they'll use well. But really, their draft haul is Cam Smith and Devon Achane. And I thought this was the absolute best landing spot for Achane out there. Like Ryan McDowell and I mentioned the Locked On Dynasty stuff. We did our pre-draft rookie ranks, and I had Achane really low, frankly, just because he's small and small backs don't translate well to fantasy. But the second he landed in Miami, and that's the only team I would do this for, I threw him up much, much higher. I think he's a smaller but more explosive Raheem Mostert Niner type back that they'll use really, really well. So I love that pick for them. They obviously value speed more than any team in the league. And I have A-Chain, Waddle, and Hill all in the field together, which is bonkers. So I don't know Cam Smith personally, but I've been told he's very difficult to deal with and is a bad interview, but he's a borderline first-round player. And you match him with Ramsey as those additions and their first-round pick that we talked about last year, Ogabegani, or I kill his name. He's probably going to get cut or moved on. So Smith fits in. I mean, they value corners a lot there. But I think Ramsey's the key. I mean, what they paid for Ramsey, including the cap space, I think is a massive addition. So I would give him a B to B plus, including the two veterans.
Igbenogany is the
nicely done
for there. Yeah, he's done nothing since his first round selection in 2020. Yeah, I mean, they drafted a third round running back who's change of pace at most. Speed great, but he's not going to be a big factor. He's not going to be like your next bell cow running back or anything out of nowhere. Like he's got a place on the roster, and it's not high on the roster in my opinion. So I don't know if I love that in the third round. Elijah Higgins could be interesting in a sort of move tight end conversion sort of a way. I think that was the right place for him, but we're talking about a 6th round pick now because he only had 4 picks, 2, 3, 6, 7. And then Cam Smith, we'll see. That's where you're swinging for some traits there and hoping he becomes a starting caliber cornerback, but he doesn't have to be much right away. I don't love the value of the Chubb deal, but clearly their draft gets graded on how good and how long Ramsey and Chubb stick around.
Even when you and I weren't doing the show then, but I always thought the league and media has been too high on Chubb since his draft day or his draft prep, to be honest with you. I never saw a special player.
And that was for last year. They were trying to get that bump and then they would have him for another year. But, pick 29 or whatever it was, first round pick for that. It's a little much.
I will say they didn't enter this draft with a lot of needs.
True. They have a good roster, but then that's not you start to create future needs by not just drafting the best guys, because you have a few needs now doesn't mean you're not going to have a bunch of needs in 2 years when the prospects are going to be good and playing.
Yeah, exactly. Role. Or Tyreek retires or, start paying to, things get tough.
All right. Next, we've got a question about how to build around a mid-tier quarterback and a question about hot dog rollers that only Matt Williamson can answer. Next. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. What are you looking for? You're looking for the combination of low in sugar, low in calories. When you're reaching for a snack, but it's got to taste great. And that's why Built has made the best protein bars on the planet. If you're like me, you're trying to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise in taste. Well, look, we've got it. We got this figured out for you. It is very simple. You go to built.com, you grab some Built bars. If you like marshmallowy goodness, you go Built Puffs, and healthy is amazing. Listen to these flavors in a low calorie, low sugar, high protein snack. Cookie dough chunk puff, one of the top sellers right now. They got the animal cookie bar, peanut butter puff, coconut brownie strip bars, cookie dough strip. What does that say? It's a protein bar with a strip of cookie dough in it, but guess what? Only 150 calories in that bar. And we're talking most Built bars have only 130 calories. They have 17 grams of protein and only 4 grams of sugar. So unbelievable what the folks at Built Bar are able to do in a low calorie, low sugar snack that tastes awesome. And most Built Bars covered in 100% real dark chocolate, which really sets it off and you really feel like you're getting a snack. Not only all the flavors and varieties at built.com, but you can find them on your local Walmart and Sam's Club shelves as well. So go check it out today, Walmart, Sam's Club, or built.com, and you can thank us later. Here we go, Matt. You've got to figure. You've got to let the listeners know what's going on here with this question.
Okay.
And only you can answer it. First of all, what is a hot dog roller? That's the question from @BD Peacock on Twitter because I don't know.
Whoa.
I don't know what a hot dog roller even is. I mean, you got a hot dog factory in your house. The real RDH on Twitter says, is it actually true that Williamson NFL bought a hot dog roller for his house? How much mileage does one get from their personal hot dog roller?
Okay. Now, prediction time. I think 20 of our listeners are going to tweet me in the next day or so saying, wow, you made a really promising case. I'm getting one too. Okay. Now, a hot dog roller much like you'll find at the Quickie Mart, is the hot dogs just kind of rolling in the corner. They keep them nice and warm. They cook real easy. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Okay. I see. I thought it meant like you rolled you put the sausage in and it rolled
up
no. For you. Okay.
I just have the machine that cooks them, like the Quickie Mart.
Actually, this is kind of even worse than I thought it was going to be.
I don't know why everyone finds this funny. I think
you got the 7-Eleven heat lamp hot dog roller on your counter at home, and your wife was
it's not a heat lamp, it's just the roller, and there's a glass covering to keep the dust and bugs away from it. So I would say 10 to 12 years ago, a large package from Amazon arrives, and my wife gets to it first, and text galore. What on earth did you buy? And it's an industrial strength, big, nice one. Holds about 18 dogs, maybe 24. I'd have to pull it out to double check. I mean, it's substantial.
Wow.
So I knew this question was coming because someone asked it last night, and I just wanted to double check. What's a hot dog roller run nowadays on Amazon? Similar model you can get for under $150. I think everyone should own one. I mean, I had a saying back in college that, if you build it, they will come. And what I meant by that was, if I go out and buy a keg, we're going to have a good time that night. Word will spread. We'll all have a good time. Keg was $50. Maybe we all throw in 10 or whatever, and everybody has a good time. Build it, they will come. Who in their right mind walks past a hot dog roller at a party or in any scenario and doesn't say, I could use a dog? There's mustard sitting here. There's ketchup. There's pickles. There's buns. That's not hard to provide as a host. I mean, it's a party. It's a nice side piece to any party, so it comes out 5 times a year. Although I love to make the joke that I keep it next to the bed year round. And example, we go to this cabin for a week every year. They feed us, but not particularly well. The teenagers walk right over to the hut. I mean, we have 100 dogs in the fridge for the week. They're gone by Wednesday because the teenagers go up and eat 50 of them, after dinner stinks. Or my buddies come up late night. Hey, why don't we put a dog on the roller? Of course. And any party it comes out, of course, sits on the counter. And I urge everyone to invest $150 in it because it's a party in itself. There's only one downside, and cleaning it stinks. Cleaning it is no fun. But if you never turn it off, you never have to clean it.
That's what I picture. That's what I picture. It's just on your counter, and every time you walk into the house, there's hot dogs rolling in the Williams, just like it is at 7-Eleven. But you asked the question,
I lived alone or without a wife, that would be much more feasible. But once it comes out, it doesn't go away quick. We have a party. I turned 50 on June 6th. You can wish me ahead of time, but I'm sure we'll have a party here. The dog roller will be out.
Okay.
But it'll probably be June 18th till it goes away.
That is pretty unbelievable. You asked the question, who walks by a hot dog roller at the Quickie Mart and doesn't want one? I will raise my hand. I am not a hot dog eater. I see that, and it makes me nearly nauseous. There's nothing from that section of the Quickie Mart that I'm interested in. But it's
a bad example because I would never get one there because they've been there for like 4 days and they're gray and nasty,
I like a good sausage, and depends on how it's made and what's in it and what kind of just straight old like pink mystery meat hot dog. Not into it. Don't like them. I've never liked them. I had the nickname Chili Buns for a while because there's this old hot dog stand in my hometown. Shout out Taylor's Hot Dogs, Visalia, California. And we would go there, and they had not cheap hot dogs, and my friends would get a hot dog. I would get what they called, I didn't know it at the time, and they let us know, and then that just became my nickname because I would get a chili dog with no wiener in it. So it's just chili buns is what they call those, for those of you out there, because that's how little I like hot dogs. Because I'll do so depending on what you throw on there. So this cooks.
Oh, there's usually chili involved. If we're having 20 people over or more, there'll be a vat of chili right nearby.
Can you throw a brat on there, or is it just for like?
I was going to address that. So yes, but you have to be careful because any thicker tubular meat might move from roller spot 1 to roller spot 2 on you and could end up on the floor.
Okay.
It's built for dogs, and it stays there beautifully. Sometimes brats and whatnot are perfectly fine. Sometimes they get a mind of their own and start moving on you.
Good knowledge from the listeners to bring this up, because I had no idea that Williamson had his own personal hot dog roller. So the roller is the thing that cooks it, because when you see the Quickie Mart, the heat lamp is what heats it, and the rollers just roll.
Yeah,
right?
no heat lamp involved. The rollers get very warm. You can turn it to hot, low. Easily. They cook much quicker than you think. And hey, I understand your fear or dislike of a true hot dog that's pig lips and buttholes and who knows what's all in there. But a good old beef frank that you pay a little more for, a Hebrew national,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not serving garbage here,
Okay. So this is high class hot dog roller at the Williamson residence.
Yeah, and
And I
everyone
can
should
absolutely
invest.
see certain times a year where you bust out the hot dog roller next to the keg, and how that makes a lot of sense. So
Absolutely, it's going to happen on June 6th. It happens on Halloween. It happens at the cabin. It's phenomenal. Very few walk by it without a comment, for one, which is worth $150 in its own right.
It's a conversation piece.
She's
You
like,
got
"Did you rent this?" I'm like, no, I
got-
have it all the time.
You spend thousands of dollars on this artwork on your wall, right? And then it's the hot dog roller that everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. My wife decorates the place to no end for Halloween, and we sit around talking about the hot dog roller.
Happy early birthday, by the way.
No, thank you.
All right. How are we building around mid-level quarterbacks in the NFL, and tons more coming up on this mailbag episode of Peacock and Williamson. And thank you once again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers. We did have a question. Are you guys going to go deep dives division by division? Yes, we are going deep dives division by division. That is coming up, and we're going to go through every team's draft. So if we have not talked about your team's draft, we will, and we will look ahead to your team's season as well here, as we do every day on Peacock.
A division per day, I think, is about right.
I think that's the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe starting next week, or we'll figure that out.
Might even start tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
It's coming up soon.
Yeah.
Okay. From JDS, how do you see the Seattle backfield shaking out after they drafted 2 running backs and following a running back last year in Kenneth Walker, who looked awesome?
So I've been teasing Locked On Dynasty a lot, and I've been bringing up fantasy, and this is the talk of the Dynasty community, because going into the draft, the only backs that were more valuable than Charbonnet were Gibbs and Bijan, obviously. Charbonnet was a consensus Dynasty rookie RB3. And I would say no incoming rookie stock fell worse than his because of landing spot. And maybe no established is a strong word for a second-year player, but no other running back stock fell more than Kenneth Walker's too. I mean, he was like RB4-ish in Dynasty because he's so young, he's productive. Now he's going to, is he 9th or 10th, So I don't know. I think it's alarming. Pete Carroll does whatever he wants. Walker's not much of a receiver, and Charbonnet's a better receiver than people give him credit for. They obviously want to run the ball. I think they know Geno Smith's not a locomotive. I mean, he's a trailer, not a truck. So they need to run the football and protect him. I didn't love the pick. I hate it for fantasy, but I think it makes Seattle hard to play against.
Yeah, it did screw up the value of both of those players
and
kind of just cut it in half. And if you like the player, you still get them. And maybe that just means you get a discount on one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if you draft Charbonnet, you're just, you don't want to hope for an injury, but that could all of a sudden make your guy super valuable. And that's what we saw with Walker last year. He needed something to happen in front of him to get the job. And we knew he would go crazy once he did.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, I'm not implying that they're concerned about Kenneth Walker's health, but they have doctors with hands on him every day, and they know him, and he got hurt last year. Maybe they know something we don't about his long-term durability.
That's immediately what I thought. And so for me, what this does is it makes me want Charbonnet and makes me not want Walker. And actually, this is a great question because I play in a keeper league every year, and you only keep one guy. And there's a round attached to the guy that you keep, and he costs more every year until you can't keep him anymore, basically.
Okay.
And so for me, my decision all offseason was going to be Kenneth Walker or Garrett Wilson, who I drafted, and they both were back-to-back rounds, so that doesn't really factor in. Whichever guy I like the most, I'm going to keep. And Walker was the guy I was probably going to keep because he's a running back, and this is fantasy football.
Yeah.
But I
don't think anymore.
I think it's Garrett Wilson plus with Aaron Rodgers, like those two things combined, what we saw happen over the course of a couple of days, that flipped for me from Walker to Garrett Wilson, probably.
Yeah. I wonder in Joe average, fantasy draft, who goes higher now? I bet it's Wilson. I would take Wilson over Walker.
Yeah, I think that's my decision, and it has been made now.
Yeah.
We'll see what the reports are out of camp with Wilson, but I have a feeling, I mean, that could go I think that could go really well with Aaron Rodgers there,
I do
obviously.
too.
Hoyt has the question here about mid-round or mid-level quarterbacks, mid-tier quarterbacks in the NFL. If you're building around a quarterback that's in the top 10 to 15 range, Tua, Wilson, Carr, Cousins, etc., are your best chances of winning to surround your quarterback with as much talent as possible, or load up on D to try to win with D and keep the ball out of your quarterback's hands?
I think it's a tremendous question. I think it's a question that is somewhat unanswerable right now, and the league would love to know the answer and is pushing all the different buttons to find out. And I know that was a well-structured question. I'm not changing it. I think one of the keys is to have one of those dudes on a rookie contract, for one thing.
To allow you. So then the answer isn't so much either or. The answer is yes. Build
exactly
on
with a rookie
and
contract.
build the defense, and if and hopefully you're not overpaying for a mid-tier quarterback.
Like, I hate in the scouting world or in the media world, that guy can't win a Super Bowl. You can't win a Super Bowl with that guy. Well, you can. I mean, maybe it's a long shot, but I think anymore it's an extreme long shot. And I'm not picking on Kirk Cousins. Can you win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins? I mean, everything has to go to plan, and you have to play the Niners when their quarterbacks all get hurt. You know what I mean? Like, you need some bounces.
I think the perfect example is, okay, has there been enough around Kirk Cousins to get the Minnesota Vikings there? Clearly not. And clearly he's not going to drag them there.
Right.
The Niners had a ton of playmaking talent on offense, built one of the best defenses in the league, and guess what? They're going to NFC Championship games and have at least gotten close with Jimmy G, and then with Purdy, and we saw what happened last year. But they've gotten close, and a play away from maybe winning the Super Bowl in 2019. So you can, but it just shows how extremely difficult it is when you're going to end up playing in that Super Bowl against, and on the path to the Super Bowl against, either top defenses in the NFL or top quarterbacks in the NFL. So it's exceedingly more and more difficult when you're going to have to run through. And if you're in the AFC, you have to run through all of Rodgers and Allen and Mahomes and Burrow. I mean, it's so difficult.
It's so difficult. And I'm not saying it's an impossible formula, but I threw out that stat a couple of weeks ago about the quarterbacks that win the Super Bowl are basically Hall of Famers or close to it, and Kirk Cousins isn't, and Carr isn't, and Jimmy isn't, but I do think, speaking of the Niners, if you can have some Bosas and Warners also on rookie deals, maybe I can live with a Cousins $30 million contract if I drafted really well the last 4 years, and I have, but the problem is, you're not going to pick in the top 5 very often with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. He's too good to be bad.
We keep I talk about that all the time, and some fans get mad about it, but it's like it's better to be the team that accidentally loses so many games that they get a chance to get a better quarterback than to be what used to be 8-8 every year, 9-8 and 8-9, and you're not a playoff team, but you're not bad enough, or you have to trade everything to go get a quarterback that you're still flipping a coin on. And that's where the Vikings have been with Cousins, and they just continue to stay there.
And somewhat related, because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, I was shocked how, in this past draft, how early some of the tier 3 quarterbacks, like Jake Hayner or worse, you know what I mean? And a lot of them went like in the 5th round, 4th round. And I wanted to address that because I was shocked with 69 quarterbacks starting this past year. I was shocked that some of the backup quarterbacks, the Sam Darnolds of the world, the Bakers, didn't get more money than they did. But I think the league corrected itself by saying, well, I'm going to invest in a backup that costs very little. It's going to be cheap for 4 years. And I'm going to keep taking bites at that apple. Maybe one of them's Dak Prescott. You know what I mean? And I also think it reflected that 5th, 6th, 7th rounds of this past draft were pretty bad. So just give me a cheap backup and maybe one of them hits.
I'm glad you brought up Jake Hayner, because I do want to go to the YouTube comments for a couple here. And one was from Louie, and it's not even so much of a question, but he said, any takes on Jake Hayner, drafted by New Orleans, who just signed Derek Carr, both Fresno State quarterbacks. So there we go. The Fresno State to New Orleans pipeline, in effect.
Yeah, hadn't thought of that. I think there's something to him. I think he would probably have been my 6th quarterback if I went that far in rankings, behind Hooker. I think he's best of the rest, so to speak.
See, over here on the West Coast, and I have a lot of friends. Some went to Fresno State that kind of follow Fresno State. He was like, a darling around here. He grew up in the Bay Area, and I thought locally people were a little too high on Haener, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't expect him to go in that 3rd, 4th round range. He might be there 6th, 7th. And he ended up going in the 4th round, so the league was high on him, and I liked him a lot. But I thought he was going to go a little bit later. Older, injuries. But there's a lot to like. And if there's anybody who's going to be the next Brock Purdy, which I think a lot of people are blaming all the quarterbacks being drafted on that, and I think we saw it after Dak Prescott. Like you start to the league chases its own tail a lot, right? And it's a very copycat league. So one team does one thing and everyone's like, oh, let's do the thing that the team did and try to do that thing. It's not always that easy, but I could absolutely see it being Jake Haener. And I never thought about it. Interesting. The 2 Fresno State quarterbacks together in New Orleans.
I'm sure that's coincidence, but that's kind of cool. I mean, maybe the GM has a connection there, or who knows. So I just pulled it up though. Haener went 127 and Jaron Hall went 164. There were 7 quarterbacks in that range, which you could argue were overdrafted. They may never start, but that was a big run there of cheap backups that might hit. And I think, your boy Purdy is obviously a crazy example, but if any of them turn into Gardner Minshew, that's a financial windfall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's especially if you really like a guy. You don't want to force that, but if you really like a player and you think he's got some ability and some smarts, and if your quarterback gets hurt and maybe you're developing a quarterback in the future for another team, if he looks good, you can make some money on that deal. Like
the Browns took Dorian Thompson-Robinson at 140 overall. He plays a similar brand as Watson. He's experienced, and Watson's like a $60 million cap hit next year. You can't have a $5 million backup. It makes all sense in the world. You know?
Rookie contract quarterback is important because backups are making a lot of money, and if the starters are making crazy money, then the backups are going to start making a little bit more money too. So what's that going to look like? So maybe teams are just like, I need rookie contract quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't blow me away if Stetson Bennett plays this year for the Rams. I mean, how long Stafford going to be able to stay on the field?
That's another one. It's Haener and Bennett. Those are the two where it's like, okay, sneaky, played a lot of football. They get in early, have some savvy, have some playmakery abilities. DTR is another one where they get in, they surprise as rookies.
And I wouldn't be blown away if Clayton Tune is the day one starter for the Cardinals. I mean, who else is it going to
be? They had a better reason than some of these other teams to draft a rookie quarterback in that range too.
Yeah. So that was definitely a trend. There was a big group, 7 of them went really all together, and it shocked me a little bit.
I want to go to this and finish it up on the YouTube comments. By the way, make sure you're subscribed up, hit the thumbs up on the new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel. JRG says Houston only gave up the 2023 second and a 2024 first. The other picks offset. They swapped Arizona with Arizona, number 3 and number 12. They swapped with Arizona's 4th rounder with Houston's 3rd rounder. So it was 2 picks for one player. On paper, it sounds like more. And I bring this up because I went through this covering the 49ers a couple of years ago with the trade.
This is all you.
And it's so funny to me. And this is the argument that fan bases get into. And I just chuckle at it because there was this huge argument. Did the 49ers trade 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks for Trey Lance? Because they gave up 2 extra ones, plus 1 was the pick swap to get you from number 12 to number 3. And it's the same numbers here, number 12 to number 3. And fans that want to look at it with a half full are like, oh, it was only you gave up 2 picks because the others were a swap. And so you actually gained on those. So you didn't. So the way I always put it, and it doesn't change it, right? But it just depends on how you want to. It's semantics. So for Houston Texans fans, think of it this way: what did you spend on the player, right?
Right.
You had a first round pick, right? And you got one player, so you spent 3 first round picks on one player. That's what happened.
Yeah, and the Bears spent 1 first round pick on Darnell Wright. Like everyone has a cost. It's not like these guys are free, So
right.
You spent 3 on your guy. The Bears spent, like everyone else in the league, spent 1 on their guy, Yeah, that's the way to look at it.
2 firsts and a second. I called the
there you go.
early second rounder close to and look, that's the value. That's actually more valuable than, if they went 20-25 first round pick. with the devaluation of future picks. So 2023 seconds actually cost more than if you did 2024 and 2025 first round pick, according to, the way picks are devalued in the future.
Every player costs something.
Right. Yeah. So the picks were spent. Don't worry about the semantics. What did they spend on that player? They could have had 3 players. They got 1.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah.
All right. I'm glad we figured that out. We got hot dog rollers. We got trade swaps, semantics down. Very successful episode here in the Peacock and Williamson mailbag. Thanks to everybody for getting your questions in. Apologies if we didn't get to yours, but keep them coming on YouTube. Subscribe up, hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell, and you can always drop those questions anytime at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Deep dives on all the divisions, NFL drafts, and more coming on Peacock and Williamson.